Yo, what is up, guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully, you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, Anthony Yarde makes his return to the ring by winning a 10-round ref decision over Ralfs Vilcans, a unknown Latvian fighter who came in with a record of 17-1. Going into this fight, I think most of us imagined that Yarde would get the job done and get the job done by stoppage, not really have too many problems as such. That wasn't the case. So the referee judged this fight. There's a thing in the UK, if you're not from the UK, some fights can be judged by a referee. And this was one of those occasions. You know, not title fights, but non-title fights can be can be judged by referees. And this was one. The scorecard was 98-92 in favour of Anthony Yarde. That is way too harsh on Ralfs Vilcans, as far as I'm concerned. I can certainly make an argument he won 4 rounds, maybe even 5 rounds. So I felt he was very much hard done by on the scorecards. But regardless, first round it looked like Yarde was going to blow the guy away. Literally first right hand, Anthony Yarde throws. It drops Ralfs Vilcans. Ralfs Vilcans going into this fight looked cold. Didn't look like he had a great warm-up. Way too relaxed. He came out kind of pouring and with his lead hand. Yarde, over the top, overhand right, bang on the chin. Down goes Vilcans. Not hurt, but dropped. Rest of the round, both guys were pouring. Yarde was firing the jab to body and head. Looking for another big shot. And after the first round, the next couple of rounds, Anthony Yarde was prodding and probing, and it looked like he was looking for another big single shot. That never really came, and Vilcans was able to prod and probe with his jab, score with his jab, and also score with his straight right hand. Vilcans is not a puncher. He came into this fight with just 7 knockouts, but he was able to touch up Yarde when Yarde was boxing with him. Round 4, Yarde stopped boxing. He kind of elected to come forwards behind a guard and try to walk down Vilcans. At this point, Yarde was getting to the body quite well. It felt like Vilcans was starting to feel the pace, being a late replacement or like a late opponent. Yarde, landed the more damaging shots in round 4, but Vilcans was still boxing. He was still having success with his straight punches in particular, catching Yarde as he was coming forwards, but Yarde landed the much harder shots. And I think it was the same for round 5. Yarde was kind of trying to bully Vilcans with his physicality, with his strength, with his power. And there were moments throughout this fight where you felt, Vilcans felt that shot, especially body shots. You could see him kind of double over a little bit, grimace, but he got through those moments. And after the midway point, at the midway point, it looked like Yarde was going to force a stoppage. But after the midway point, so like round 6, 7, 8, and 9, Vilcans was in those rounds. He really was. He was in those rounds. Again, Yarde was landing the more damaging punches. Like, he was landing clearly the harder punches. But Vilcans was able to shoe shine. He was able to land the 1-2. Some good body work throughout this fight from Ralfs Vilcans, with the left hook especially. And he was tagging up Yarde, One thing I'll say, if Yarde was in there with a big puncher, he might have been in a bit of trouble because his guard was getting penetrated way too easily. His body was being found way too easily. Defensively, Yarde was very easy to hit tonight. Luckily, he was in there with a non-puncher. Yarde kind of closed it out strong in round 10. He kind of went back to boxing. He went back behind his jab, which was successful. He was beating Vilcans to the jab and also finding good single shots. He wasn't looking for the knockout quite as much. He was kind of making Vilcans walk onto his punches. And that suited Yarde far more, what he was doing in round 10. Trying to make Vilcans chase it and then counter kind of thing. And that's exactly what he did, but, fight ended. And I felt that Vilcans got really harshly done by on the scorecard. Felt he clearly won more than 2 rounds. Argument for 4 rounds, 5 rounds, in my opinion. It was a close fight. Aside from the knockdown, you could argue this was a draw. in my opinion. It was a close fight. I felt Yarde just about nicked it, but it was a close fight. And Yarde, for me, he didn't look great. As I said, defensively he was there to be hit. His guard was split so easily against the non-puncher. And like I said, if he was in there with a guy who could punch a bit, if Vilcans could punch a bit, he may have been in trouble. So yeah, not a great performance by Yarde. Lost too many rounds against a fighter of Vilcans' caliber. You know, Vilcans showed that he was better than we expected, but at the end of the day, Vilcans isn't going to give a world-level guy trouble, you know? And the fact that Yarde had trouble with this guy is definitely concerning. What does Yarde do next? I mean, for me, the fight to make is obviously the Buatsi fight. But, you know, I've always favoured Yarde over Buatsi. Well, for the most part, I have. I feel if Yarde is at his best, you know, from like the Beterbiev fight, for example, the second Arthur fight, I think he'd beat Joshua Buatsi. But the Yarde that showed up tonight, I'm not so sure, man. I'm really not so sure. But yeah, actually quite a good fight for what it was, but believe it or not. Decent fight, close fight. Vilcans did well. I think Vilcans would be good. He'd be best suited as like a test for young prospects coming up at light heavyweight. That's his sort of role in my opinion, but you know, he showed he could box a bit. But yeah, Yarde looked poor. Anyway, share your thoughts below. Being your guy, Del Boy. Peace.